Hi, everyone. Thank you, and welcome for coming. Thank you for coming. My name is Jose Alvear. I'll be moderating this panel session. This is the Codecs and Architecture panel, the technical track. Just make sure you're in the right room. I'm just up here for introductory purposes. I'm going to go take a seat, actually. I want to introduce our panel, our distinguished panel today. And actually, they'll be giving, I'll introduce them, but they'll be giving their own introductions by who they are and where they work. Testing.
So just see if this is...
Yeah, I think it's working. Great.
Hello? Yeah.
This is Daniel Harris from the Kendra Initiative to my right. To his left, sorry,
yeah.
I'm going backwards. To his left is Malcolm Rowe from Mirror Image Internet. To his immediate left is Fabian Friedland from Onto.com, and all the way at the other end is Ian Chapman Banks from Apple. And Daniel, why don't you start out telling us a little bit about you and the company?
Okay. My name is Daniel Harris from Kendra Initiative. I'm representing an initiative which is, it's not a company, it's a non-profit organization which is charged with promoting and building a content distribution system, an open platform for content distribution that has built-in facilities for generating revenue. This is basically a system that will allow content owners to create money from their content. We really looked at what was happening with Napster and just looked at how much potential revenue was being chucked away, and said we've really got to rectify this. So it's about bringing people together to form a common vision, and rather than saying, here's a good piece of technology, how do we use it? It's about saying, here's a good business model, now let's glue the technology together to actually create the system. The technology is out there, we've just got to glue it together. Thank you.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Thanks, Jose, and a quick thank you to Streaming Media for organising this event and for asking me to participate in the panel. My name is Malcolm Rowe. I'm from Mirror Image Internet. Mirror Image are a web acceleration company, otherwise called a CDN, a Content Delivery Networking Organisation. What we enable is for people to receive their content, be it objects, pictures, logos, or indeed streaming formats. We enable people to receive those at their PC at the speed of light, removing the latency that's associated with internet performance. How do we do this? Well, we're a profit organisation rather than a charitable institution. We work with enterprises, with web design companies, .coms, governments, e-learning, anybody involved in internet trafficking, be it B2B, B2C, websites, ASPs, etc. We enable these people to use our global distribution and architecture to reach markets across the world within 2 seconds of download time. How do we do that? We have massive storage, processing, and connectivity into the ISP and network access points aggregated locations. So here in Hong Kong, we're in the Hong Kong International Exchange. So we reach people within one hop. So if you're a company in the USA, Merrill Lynch, here in Hong Kong, you've got immediate access to their entire website without leaving Hong Kong. And imagine that replicated across the globe, be that for content on a website, be it transactional information for a B2B, B2C situation, or be it streaming, which is relevant today. So if you play a stream today, if you want to go to the U2 website, we're distributing that globally, and you get that website delivered to you at up to 2 megabits per second speed. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. I don't represent codec, I don't represent architecture. We support any codec and any architecture which is leading standard industry.
That's a pretty good viewpoint, I think, so it's good to have you on the panel. Fabian, go ahead, talk about Onto.
Hi, my name's Fabian Friedland. I'm from a company called Onto. Many of you who've been in the business for a long time may know us by our earlier name, which is Duck Technologies, with the brand name TrueMotion. We've been developing core video compression technology, high-quality video compression technology for about 10 years now. We were the first company that put full-screen, full-motion video on a CD-ROM for the Sega Saturn, and we also did the video for the Sega Dreamcast. In fact, the founders of our company believe that in order to make to be successful and to make money from digital video, it would have to be of a resolution that was at least equal to what consumers have been used to for the last 50 years, which is television. We now develop not only codecs, but also a video architecture for use in embedded systems, set-top box type of systems. But we have a very high-quality codec which is used in QuickTime 5 as a component download and also in real networks. And again, our main focus is on very high-quality video delivered over broadband networks.
Thank you. Ian Chapman Banks. I represent Apple Computer. I guess 1984, Apple started it all off with the desktop publishing revolution. And I think our philosophy is that we situate ourselves between the intersection of art and technology. And our whole philosophy is to make, or to let people like yourself achieve your creative aspirations, or your creative dreams. And the reason I'm on the panel today, and I'm very grateful you've invited me, is to really talk about how Apple is changing, if you like, and making easier the digital revolution, the internet revolution, the streaming revolution. And more particularly, QuickTime 5 was posted last week, and QuickTime 5 is our software codec, which allows you to view software, to view movies and audio on your PCs or your Macs. Currently have 150 million downloads of QuickTime, both on Macs and PCs, so it's universally accepted. And also, QuickTime as a content creation software is probably the most widely used content creation software in Hollywood. So it's certainly one of the standards in the industry.
And I think that might be a good place to start talking about standards. We talked a little bit briefly about that. And just to inform everyone who's not too familiar with streaming, the three major formats, Real, Microsoft, Apple, QuickTime that is, they are not compatible with each other at all. They're pretty much, you want to watch one content with Real, you can't watch it with the Windows Media Player. And that, maybe I'll throw that out there. Is that a problem in the industry? Is that something that has been slowing down the industry, or does it help it in terms of getting the codecs a bit more mature, getting them better quality? I'll throw it out to anyone.
I mean, I think it's certainly a problem, and I think that, those of us here who are in the business of storing the video will attest that if one was to choose all three standards, that it would take up a lot of space on the server side. It has served, I think, to advance the movement of codec development and architecture development. Also, obviously, competition develops enhances better technology. I think that each one has developed its own niche. Currently, some of them have progressive download, which is certainly better for short-form content. But I think that eventually there'll have to be some kind of shakeout. When somebody makes a decision as to what type of architectures they're going to choose, I don't think it's prudent to choose all three. I think sometimes you see companies that choose 2 out of the 3, or sometimes only 1 out of the 3. And I think we'd like to move towards a time where you can encode once and serve 3 times. And I think there's a number of different ways of doing that, whether it's from real-time transcoding or from codecs that go across all 3 platforms.
And it's not just the three architectures, the 3 platforms. It's also multiple bit rates. You have to support, maybe Malcolm, you can talk about this a little bit. You have to support the 3 formats and multiple bit rates from low bandwidth to broadband, which it seems like for a content owner, content provider, would mean increased costs.
Yes,
or even for you.
Well, it means enormous increased cost for us because, as has been said, 3 different formats for streaming. Then multiple different bit rates according to whether you're trying to target a market of narrowband or broadband and variations between that. So yes, as a CDN player, our problem is simple. We have to store all sorts of format types. We need to prepare speed rates, and we need to have all sorts of costs associated with upgrades, maintenance, and distribution, and replicate that across the globe. It's an expensive business. Now, of course, we pass that on to you, the customer.
Thank you very much.
And that isn't good for you. It's not good for us. So whilst we remain independent, we recognize that something's going to have to change. Let's just take a look at that very quickly. In America, corporate America use 80% of the time one particular streaming format, preferably to another. Whereas if we then take the Asia market, Apple is media is the choice format here. So we find that in different parts of the globe there are regionalizations, and we'd like to see some sort of leveling off here, but I'm sure we'll have a different view from Ian.
Sure.
I think. Sorry.
I guess who knows what's going to happen in the future. I think, our focus is really to establish QuickTime as the easiest media to use, and that really is our focus: is to make it easy to use, to allow you to be incredibly creative. And I think last year Apple and Reel licensed QuickTime, so
Right.
Reel will now stream QuickTime. So I guess it's happening, but really I think our focus is content creation. Everybody's using it, and what can I say? The industry is evolving so quickly that competition is good. If we didn't have these 3 different formats, then I guess the industry wouldn't have progressed so quickly.
I think what you've done with Reel is really essential. In the what I see as the real pain is for the end users, is for the people actually watching this stuff. They have to download, or they have had to download, 3 different players, and this can only be a bad thing for. Okay, I'm not sure about the playoff between competition. Yes, that's a good thing, but having to download 3 different players, upgrade all your 3 different players constantly is going to turn end users, unless they're very dedicated, off the idea of streaming over the internet. And it would be interesting to know how many people here are actually content creators and actually putting out content that what you want to be viewed by people on the internet. So how many people are concerned about getting that audience? Is there anyone here that's doing that?
You can raise your hand if you're...
Yeah, just raise your hand. Okay, so there's a few, and I think that's where the problem lies. Is that there's a political thing going on here where companies, I shouldn't say, as commercial decision, I suppose is more of a sense where companies don't interoperate their codecs on different players, and I think that's a real problem for end users and turning people off streaming.
And a lot of people use a comparison of TV. For example, if this were happening in TV, you'd have to have a NBC player to watch NBC content, and to have a different player if you wanted to watch another channel. And it strikes real. And I mean, it's true. I mean, how can you get around that?
I think that we have witnessed the birth of a new industry with the streaming media over the internet industry, and it is evolving very fast. And I think we're also witnessing the death of the PC. The PC as an entertainment access device sitting on the desktop is a very bad place for that device to sit, and it's going to migrate into the living room. We've all heard about convergence for a long time, and it won't be to a PC. It will be to a box that will exist somewhere that will be connected to a network, which will display pixels on your screen of some kind. And I think that...
And what codec will it use? Or what?
There'll be a set-top box, and it will have some technology which the user will not know about or even care about. The user doesn't know about standards. The user doesn't care about standards. Especially once we start moving towards set-top boxes over VPNs, virtual private networks, or even private networks. The decisions are going to be made for by the MSOs or by the people who are going to be providing the content and the technology. And I think that at that point, a lot of these issues and concerns will start to go away, just like they have with television.
But the concern here is it's all about when. And what you and I need to do is just deal with today and let that kind of sort itself out. Because right now we need content and we need it fast. We don't want to wait. We don't want to mess around with not being able to do one thing, but we can do another. We need it all today. So this convergence will happen. It'll happen much quicker than we anticipate, but we can't do it by design. We just have to work together and make it happen.
I really would dispute that, because that's the whole point about Kendra and I don't dispute that we need to make it work for today, we need to earn revenues today, but also we do really need to think about what tomorrow is going to be. We need to make sure that it works out the way we want it to work out. It's not a given thing that it is going to work out. We're as much market forces as market forces out there is. And a lot of criticism that we've encountered about Kendra is, well, why don't you just leave it up to market forces? Let things just ride out. Well, that's what That Market Forces is Microsoft. Market Forces is all of these other companies. And I'm not saying these are bad or good. I'm just saying they have their own agenda. What's your agenda? What do you want to happen? And I think it's important that you think about that. And as well as looking at what's happening today, you think about where you want to be tomorrow. Is that a Microsoft saying? And you really do move things to go in that direction. Or you're leaving it up to fate, or you're leaving it up to someone else to decide. Is that what you want?
So is the answer? We're saying wait till the future. Is the answer then maybe MPEG-4? And Ian, I think you can address a little bit. I saw a great demo. I was at NAB last week, the National Association of Broadcasters in Las Vegas, and I saw a great demo by Apple showing off MPEG-4 compatibility, and even MPEG-2 and MPEG-1.
That's right. I think 2 points. One is, we don't believe the PC is dead. You know? So,
Depends what you're using it for.
Dying, not quite.
well, our philosophy is that the PC is evolving, and the buzzword that we use is the digital hub. We just don't want to think about streaming. You think about how many people have digital cameras. How are you going to get your photographs into your PC? How many people have got MP3 players or PDAs? So we actually see the PC really is going to be the center of everybody's lives. Your MP3 players, your PDAs, your streaming. So we think it's going to change. We think the PC is going to become even more important, and it's going to become even more valuable because you'll be able to start doing things in your PC that are really interesting. Who really cares about PowerPoint or Excel or Word? They're just sort of office applications. You want to be able to go home and do interesting things. Photographs for the kids. You want to be able to go out and author your own DVD really easily. You want to be able to use our iTunes to go onto the internet to find out all these interesting radio stations around the world. So we think the PC is here. It's going to evolve and it's going to change, and it's all going to be part of what we call a digital lifestyle. You can use the PC to make your lives more interesting and easier to use. And on the subject of standards, MPEG-4, which is basically based on QuickTime, is going to be the new standard, apparently.
Right.
So, in all the standards commissions, then that's the standard they've adopted. So, people are thinking about the future. MPEG-4 is around the corner. I mean, MPEG-1 is still a great standard, and MPEG-2 for DVD is also extreme high quality. And I guess the next standard is MPEG-4, and it's coming soon.
And just to make note, I just realized this recently. Yours is the only format that doesn't have to be re-encoded to stream. I think that's pretty important because you don't have to spend that extra time to encode it down to a certain level. Real and Microsoft, you do have to do that.
And it's only format where you don't have to pay for the streams.
So can you just explain that? Because if I missed it, then maybe other people.
Right, I think people have been missing that. Yeah.
Right, but you encode to a QuickTime format, and then
all you have to do is sort of add a hint track, is what it's called, a hint track, right. And that essentially tells it, we're going to be streaming it, and this will be the bandwidth we'll be streaming it at.
But isn't that just like encoding to a real format?
Well, it's very different because with Real or Microsoft, you have to encode it to a specific format, and it actually, takes away the data and it makes it into a different file. With QuickTime, you're using the same source file for streaming or not streaming.
But it has to be in MPEG-4 to begin with.
No, actually, it's a QuickTime file.
Oh, it's okay. It has to be in QuickTime.
That's a QuickTime file.
I mean, if you had an AVI file.
Oh, well, right. You have to.
Okay, I just wanted,
Mm-hmm. And so maybe we should talk a little bit. I want to get questions in, by the way, too. So, yes, go ahead, sorry.
Choose which streaming format for my boss, and then finally it comes to the solution to stick with how much you want to invest. And then as I said, in Hong Kong, a lot of QuickTime users, because they don't worry about how much to pay. Well, choosing a Real, you need to pay quite a lot for.
It's licenses, yes.
So the point is that about the convergence or about these questions, why one has to get so much money from beginners user or from the website, investor? Would it be a deterrent for using Real in this market? And when you're doing the convergence in the future, how are you considering the payment of why they don't need to pay, why Real has to be paid? For a lot, like counting, you know.
Saying for the server, why you need to pay for the server?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to use real. Why we have to pay more for real instead of in that case. Why I don't choose QuickTime? Is it how you're dealing with the payment? Can you equalize the payment in the future, or absolutely free for?
I don't think anyone is representing real on this.
Well, actually, we have a technology that sits within Real. I can just take a very quick stab at that. We have the VP3 technology, which is a very high quality, television quality video compression technology, which sits within Real and within QuickTime. We charge for the professional version of that encoder. And the way we look at the market is, it depends what kind of content you have. And you said that you were sitting with your IT manager trying to make this decision. It depends on what content you have and what you're trying to do with it. If you're trying to charge consumers to look at the content, then it has to be of a certain quality or they won't pay for it. And in that case, you can go and you can take one of the free solutions that might not be as high quality, and that may be adequate for you. But if you're trying to get money either on a pay-per-view system or a subscription system, then consumers are going to expect a certain quality. And I think at that point, the decision should be made to go with the highest quality codec available and the highest quality architecture available, even if that means paying for it.
I think in terms of which codec are you going, which system are you going to use, be it Real, Apple, or Windows, you've got to look at the total cost. You can buy a server and run Linux on it and load up Real or Apple. You can have a server on, yeah, but you can't do it with Microsoft. So if you want the free, and you may have to pay for the Real server, then you may, if you want the free media server from Microsoft, you're going to have to pay for Windows server. So, you know, it's balances. So you have to take the whole thing in terms of setting up a whole service. It's not just it's free server, it's not free server. It's kind of what are you going to need to run this? You know?
And if you're doing it yourself, yeah, there are those costs. And in defense of Real does allow for free downloads of their server. So you can download, it doesn't, you can't stream too many people, but I think it's maybe about 20, 50.
Up to 60.
Up to 60 maybe, yeah, I forget what the limit is. So, I mean, essentially they can all be free to a certain extent. So it's just a matter of what you're doing, what job, who your audience is, what job you're doing. So it is a real dilemma though, like, right, how do you know who to support? So you support all of them, you support one of them? I can see the dilemma it would be for someone just getting into the space.
I think there's a new dilemma which is breaking, which is, okay, you've made your decision on which format to choose based upon its additional functionality, its value adds, its unique editing tools, its interoperability with other applications that you're involved with, who's your market, what are your quality needs, etc., etc. And then cost becomes a component, of course. But the big question upon delivery is, you know, Real is a problem. Real charges to get those licenses, and that's a bit of a block for many people. But in America, 80% is Real. In Asia, 80% is Microsoft with respect to Apple. But the bottom line is this, and the question is, will Real reduce its costs, indeed remove many of its costs, or in fact, the other way around? When will Microsoft start charging? And I think that's probably more likely than the other.
Any other questions?
Can I ask, have you made your decision yet?
Yes, this is QuickTime.
Right.
QuickTime.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Ian should be happy. You're not.
It's expensive. You know,
Yes.
The starting cost is more than 800,000 Hong Kong dollars at that time. You know, we were incorporating traffic. You know,
Yeah.
so it's impossible for a business that we don't really know anything earn money. And in Hong Kong, most are using just narrow band. And so the broadband is not the most popular. So no matter how good the quality is, when the receiver gets the product, it may not be reflecting the best quality. So that is the marketing thing, you know, that stops, you know, people going further to discuss the quality of the streaming product itself because of the broadband users. You know, the amount of broadband
Yeah.
users.
Are we making too much of the quality issue? I mean, all three players, all three of the major formats always try to jump ahead of each other, leapfrog in terms of quality, and come out with their own study saying, you know, 2 out of 3 prefer Windows Media than Real or QuickTime. So, I mean, is that something that's healthy for the industry? Is that?
Well, quality is our main focus, and I don't think that any particular architecture reflects the quality so much. It may reflect the ability to switch streams if there's network congestion or things like that. But in terms of the quality of the video, that's primarily the department of the codec. And I think that, again, during the birth of this industry and the development of this industry, we've heard many, many times, when people first look at streaming video, why does it look, so bad? Why does it look so crappy? And I think that, we've seen, dozens and dozens of businesses go out of business in the last 12 to 18 months. And it's because they can't make money from it, and I don't think you can make money from it unless it looks like television, or at least it looks like television. So I think quality is a very, very important issue if we're going to grow up and become a mature industry that's making money.
I think as we go forward into broadband era, I think quality is important for sure, but with the current situation at the moment, I think there's a lot of narrowband out there, and I think if we're talking about the decision on what system to use, it's really a question of what is the audience, and it's interesting that it isn't the way the audience, the numbers that you were talking about in terms of the 80-20s, the way the audiences have evolved is as much to do with what people download the player that is the format of the content they want to see. They also use the player that is easier to use or that looks nicest. So there's lots of different factors involved here.
I think there was another, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a question on here.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, about your MP4 support that's coming.
Right.
Will those MP4 files will be able to write their own player that will play those MP4 files?
I don't quite understand your question.
Are you asking where you can play them back?
A Java player to play MP4 files authored by QuickTime Tools. Would there be a problem there?
I have to apologize. I can't answer that question. I don't actually.
Are you talking about playback? Like where can you play back essentially? Or maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Well, okay. Okay. I can't comment on that, but what I can comment on is that QuickTime is just like a box. And in that box there's lots and lots of different codecs. There's MP3, there's JPEG.
But MP4 is more than just a...
Sure, no, absolutely. I think I'm just trying to draw an analogy is that everything that Apple does is completely open standards. When QuickTime was first launched 10 years ago, then we give everybody all of the APIs, and the new QuickTime 5, everybody has the APIs. So we're not interested in a closed system. What's going to happen in the future, I don't know. Can't really comment on that.
But you're not allowed to write a program that will play on streams.
Well, the demo I saw at NAB, they encoded files into MPEG-4 format, their own MPEG-4 format, and they actually played it back through the QuickTime player. They were actually MPEG-4 files, not
the other way around.
Tools creating MP4 files that are playable back by multiple players.
Right. That's one of the only players I've seen that can play it. Philips makes an MPEG-4 player. They're pretty involved in the MPEG-4 space. There's an Internet Streaming Media Alliance, which Apple is a part of. Apple, Philips, and some other big companies.
Sure.
Well, MPEG-4 is something if you're going to use it, there's intellectual property there that you have to license.
And if you think about MPEG-2 right now, if you want to use MPEG-2, you have to pay a license for it.
That's why it's not.
Absolutely, and that's why if you look at Cleaner 5, or all the software at the moment, why don't they have MPEG-2? It's not technological. It's down to a business model. You have to pay the consortium, the MPEG-2 consortium, money to play that. What's going to happen with MPEG-4? I guess it's not just an Apple decision. It's what's going to be the business model that works at that particular point in time.
I think if you're interested in open streaming architecture, I think there's things like Vorbis and OGG that are available.
That's audio, only.
There's DivX as well. As I've seen a bit of that. I'm not sure about the quality, but it's getting there.
There was another question here. Go ahead, sir.
So do you foresee that MPEG-4 will become kind of the de facto? Do you foresee that MPEG-4 will become the de facto codec standard in the streaming media? Since that, according to the spec, it has object-oriented feature. You can do a lot of maybe like interactive activity with it, and it's supposed to handle a range of bit rate from very low to pretty 3 or 4 megabit per second. Would it evolve into be a standard? I mean, like a de facto version, like codec that people will use now. I know that Microsoft already supports MPEG-4, like at least some profile of MPEG-4.
Right.
And I believe like QuickTime 5 has support for that.
Right.
It's a very good question, because everybody's very excited about MPEG-4. Unquestionably, it's the most exciting development for a long time. The features and functionality that are inbuilt within MPEG-4 are just breathtaking. Will it become the de facto standard? Really, we just don't know. We already see, I think it's real 8 will be included with MPEG-4 standard. We know that Windows are taking a variant of their own and making their Windows version of MPEG-4. So already there isn't a true MPEG standard. So we see this fragmentation already beginning. Whether it becomes a de facto within one of the 3 main streaming format types, yeah, sure. But will it be truly one de facto standard? We just don't know. And quite frankly, we foresee a situation where the markets will decide. We're back to market forces, user populations. You and I, as users, will drive this, and enterprise will drive these decisions. And we need to be prepared as a CDN player to support all of these open standards and streaming format types.
A lot of companies in the space have made their fortunes on transcoding and encoding into all these multiple formats. In a large part, it's driven the industry for a few years. So, in a way, it's been good, but in a way, it's bad for the end users. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I must say, I'm slightly less enthusiastic about MPEG-4 than everybody else I think on the panel here. MPEG-4 is a wrapper using the QuickTime wrapper. It's a protocol to some degree. We will probably have an MPEG-4 variant of our codec. But I think that when standards like MPEG first came about, and originally was MPEG-2, which was for DVD and digital satellite delivery, it was primarily there because we needed hardware decoding, and we had to have a standard so we could lock in what silicon was going to go onto these chips that were going to go into the boxes that receive this stuff. I think moving forward, it's less necessary. We're seeing CPUs that have much more processing power, and because of that, we can add different codecs when they become better and available to any playback device. And I think that once we have a standard architecture or standard architectures, which we do, and we have component downloads, which we do, there's not as much reason to have something that's locked in like a particular MPEG-4 variant.
Yes, that's the thing, we need a common architecture, and the codec doesn't matter.
Exactly, that's exactly right. Now, with things where horsepower does matter, and we're starting to see that in PDAs, handheld devices, and wireless devices like that, it may be we're starting to see that they're fixing on an MPEG-4 variant specifically for them. And I think it's necessary maybe in the early development days of those kinds of devices. But essentially, when horsepower goes up for those kinds of devices too, it will be the same thing as we have with PCs now, where it's just the architecture that makes the difference, and the codec is completely irrelevant. And as I said before, consumers couldn't care less.
I wonder if you do actually need a common architecture. I mean, like I was saying before, just to answer the question, I don't think it's going to make a difference if it's a standard. And I really would like to ask you the question of, what does a standard mean to you? A standard is something wishy-washy, but actually...
MP3 files,
For example, like a VCD is very popular in Asia.
Yeah.
It's based on MPEG-1 standard.
Yeah.
MPEG-2 drives the DVD, like look at DVD sales. I think it's increasing at, I would say, a great popular exponential rate these few years. And this also will be used in the DVD in Europe and the ATSC broadcasting in the US. So that's what I think standard helps or facilitates the adoption of
Right. And there's a ubiquitous nature there. Basically, it means that people can encode and people can receive content without having to worry about what type of encoder. They don't need to really think about the technology. But the other issue here is really it doesn't matter. Envisage a player that can play anything. I mean, there's no problem with that. concept. What the issue here is business models. The issue here is revenue generation, and that's why there is this. I don't really think MPEG 4 is going to make that much difference, because why should real Apple or Microsoft change what they're doing? It's not in their interest to start opening it up. Why would they want to? So we've got.
None of those guys supported MP3, and MP3 became de facto standard.
But it became pervasive. Yeah.
Although they'll claim, of course, that it's a 10 or 11-year-old compression, and their compression is much more better. And they're sort of not.
It's usability, which is
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have to wrap it up soon, actually. We're sort of running long on time. But I'm sure all our guests will be happy to answer any questions in private. There's a breaking for a lunch in a few minutes, so feel free to come on up. I just want to thank the panel. If you could give them a round of applause. They did a pretty good job. Thank you. Thanks very much, fellas.
Thanks, Fuzzy.